Have you ever wondered why, after 50, so many women stop feeling truly alive in their own bodies, even when their hearts are full, their minds sharp, and their souls wiser than ever? We talk about confidence, health, and aging gracefully, but we rarely talk about this, the quiet, powerful internal spot that holds the key to some of the deepest, most electric pleasure a woman can feel. It's not flashy. It's not about performance or what the world calls sexy. It's subtle, deep, and incredibly potent. It's the kind of power that doesn't shout, it hums. This so-called unsexy spot isn't about friction, fantasy, or youth. It's about presence. It's found deep within the body, in the same place we often store tension, memories, and unspoken emotions. As Dr. Jennifer Berman often emphasizes, female pleasure is a mirror of female health. When we disconnect from our own internal landscape, we also disconnect from the energy that fuels desire, creativity, and joy. Most women don't realize that as they age, their bodies aren't losing capacity for pleasure. They're actually gaining depth. The hidden internal spot that becomes more powerful over time is not simply a cluster of nerves or a physical point to press. It's a living, breathing landscape of sensation that awakens when a woman begins to feel herself from the inside out. It lies deep in the vaginal canal near the front wall, but its real potency isn't just anatomical, it's emotional. It's where the body remembers safety, where tension melts into receptivity, and where the pulse of life itself begins to hum again. When women are young, arousal is often driven by novelty, by external stimulation, by fantasy and fast energy. But as a woman matures, her arousal becomes more subtle, more connected to breath, emotion, and energy. What once felt elusive begins to feel magnetic. Pleasure no longer rushes toward climax. It rises slowly, like heat spreading through the body. This is because the internal tissues, when loved, nourished, and reawakened, hold an immense capacity for deep, rolling waves of sensation. But so many women reach midlife carrying decades of tension. Stress in the hips, unspoken resentment in the belly, old heartbreak stored in the pelvic floor. Each muscle, each layer of fascia has memory. Years of tightening, holding, and protecting take a toll. And when those muscles stay tight, the blood flow decreases, the nerves dull, and the natural rhythm of arousal becomes harder to access. That's why so many women say, "I just don't feel much anymore." It's not brokenness, it's disconnection. The good news? Connection can always be restored. When a woman begins to breathe into that area, slow, full, conscious breaths, she brings life back into her deepest tissues. With each breath, blood returns, oxygen nourishes, and energy starts to move. And this isn't just poetic, it's physiological. Blood flow is the foundation of arousal. The tissues that line the internal canal are erectile, just like the external ones. When they swell with blood, they become sensitive, alive, and deeply responsive. This is why the internal spot grows more powerful with age. The body becomes wiser at responding to awareness. A young woman might chase stimulation. A mature woman learns to summon it through connection. This internal awakening is often quiet at first. It begins as a soft tingling, a warmth that deepens when attention stays steady. It's the body saying, "I'm here, I'm still alive." It's a whisper, not a shout. But the more a woman listens, the louder it becomes, not in volume, but in presence. That's when she begins to feel something sacred, not just arousal but aliveness, a hum that extends beyond the body into her sense of being. Many women after 50 describe a new kind of orgasm when they rediscover this place. It's not sharp or fleeting. It's expansive. It spreads through the abdomen, the chest, even the throat, until tears rise without sadness, just release. It's as if the body is remembering everything it's ever been capable of feeling. That's because orgasm, at its core, is not only pleasure, it's surrender. It's the nervous system letting go, and that becomes easier, deeper, and more profound with age, because the older a woman gets, the more she has learned to trust herself. But trust requires safety, and safety for most women begins long before the bedroom. It begins with emotional connection, with herself, with her partner, with her truth. When she feels emotionally safe, her body opens naturally. When she feels seen, her body feels worthy of sensation again. That's why real pleasure at 50, 60, 70 has nothing to do with technique and everything to do with permission. Permission to be touched, to be felt, to be slow. Permission to not rush. This internal spot responds to presence like a flower to sunlight. The more it is approached with patience and reverence, the more it reveals. Too much force, too much pressure, and it retreats. But when touched or even visualized with care, it begins to bloom. That bloom is not just sexual. It's energetic. It activates creativity, confidence, and vitality. Many women find that once they reconnect with this area, their entire lives begin to shift. They feel clearer, lighter, more magnetic. It's as though life itself starts moving through them again. The ancient Taoist teachers called this the Jade Gate, the energetic portal of feminine life force. They taught that sexual energy is healing energy. When circulated through the body with breath, it nourishes every organ, calms the mind, and restores vitality. Modern science echoes this. Studies show that pelvic circulation improves mood, reduces stress, and strengthens the immune system. But beyond data, what matters is experience. The lived truth that when a woman feels alive in her center, she radiates that aliveness everywhere she goes. Yet, the hardest part is often the first step, slowing down enough to feel. In a culture obsessed with doing, with results, with instant pleasure, slowness feels uncomfortable. But slowness is the gateway. When you pause and place your attention deep within your body, not thinking about how it should feel, not judging what it does or doesn't do, but simply feeling, you start to bridge the gap between mind and body. The more you feel, the more you heal. A woman over 50 who learns to connect with her internal landscape discovers that the fire she thought had gone out was never gone. It was simply buried beneath years of stress and silence. Once she removes the layers, that internal spot becomes a source of strength. It fuels not just passion, but confidence. It softens fear. It even changes posture. Because when a woman inhabits her center, her entire body realigns. She stands taller, breathes deeper, moves differently. Pleasure is medicine. It balances hormones, increases endorphins, and reawakens the nervous system's capacity for joy. But the most profound healing happens when pleasure is approached not as a goal, but as a relationship with oneself. That's when the internal spot stops being a mystery and becomes a mirror. It reflects how connected you are to your own truth. So many women have been told their value fades with age, but in reality, the opposite is true. The older a woman becomes, the more magnetic her energy when she's connected to it. Youth may bring surface excitement, but maturity brings depth, and depth is where real pleasure lives. The internal spot is like an ancient well. The deeper you draw from it, the sweeter the water becomes. When you think of it this way, arousal after 50 isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering what was always yours. It's about giving attention to the most forgotten parts of your body and saying, "You matter." That internal whisper of self-acknowledgement can light up the entire body, because the body listens, the body remembers. Imagine placing a hand gently over your lower belly, breathing slowly, and simply asking your body, "What do you need today?" At first, the answer may come as stillness, but with patience, warmth arises. It's your own energy responding to care. That is the key. Energy responds to attention. Not force, not judgment, just presence. Over time, this connection builds a new relationship with pleasure. Instead of chasing peak experiences, you start savoring waves. Instead of waiting for someone else to unlock your body, you realize you hold the key. And in that realization, something radical happens. You stop aging in the way the world defines aging. Because vitality isn't youth. It's movement, it's circulation, it's connection. Every woman carries within her a power that cannot be taken away by time. This internal spot, this quiet center, is a portal to that power. It's where life began, and it's where life renews. The more you honor it, the more it gives back. And not only in the bedroom, in your creativity, your voice, your courage, your peace. So when people say, after 50, desire fades, let them. Because the women who know the truth smile quietly, knowing something deeper. They know that within them lies a pulse that never dies. It just waits for breath, for touch, for awareness, to bring it back to life. And once it's awakened, it never really sleeps again. It becomes the rhythm beneath your confidence, the current beneath your calm, the secret glow in your eyes that says, "I am still here. I am more alive than ever. Because the real secret is not about anatomy at all. It's about attention. The place where you focus becomes the place where you flourish. And when that focus returns to your body, to the sacred space within you that the world forgot to honor, you discover that your greatest orgasmic power was never lost. It was simply waiting for you to come home. Emotional safety is the quiet foundation of every form of deep pleasure. Without it, the body cannot truly open. You can touch, you can stimulate, you can even reach moments that look like arousal, but the nervous system is guarded, the breath is shallow, and the mind is still scanning for danger. Pleasure in that state is surface level. It flickers and fades. But when a woman feels emotionally safe, when she trusts her environment, her partner, and most importantly herself, her body softens in ways that no physical technique alone can achieve. Safety is not a mood. It's a biological permission slip. It tells the body, it's okay to feel. You're allowed to receive. For many women, emotional safety has been compromised by years of rushing, caretaking, or suppressing emotion. The body learns to armor itself, to stay functional, not vulnerable. But pleasure demands vulnerability. To feel deeply, you have to let go of control. And that only happens when the nervous system believes it's safe enough to surrender. That's why self-connection is the doorway. No partner, no tool, no secret method can replace the security that comes from knowing and trusting yourself. Think about the last time you felt truly safe. So safe that your shoulders dropped, your breath deepened, and your body began to melt into the moment. That sensation is the beginning of arousal. It's not sexual at first. It's human. Safety activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and receive mode. Blood flow increases to the core. Muscles soften, the heart rate slows. And as the body relaxes, the internal channels that lead to pleasure open naturally. This is why women who are constantly stressed, anxious, or emotionally disconnected often feel numb or switched off. The body can't open while it's bracing. When Dr. Jennifer Berman speaks about female arousal, she often emphasizes that emotional intimacy and physical responsiveness are inseparable. The brain and the body are in constant conversation. When the brain sends signals of safety, through loving thoughts, calm breath, and positive connection, the body responds with warmth and sensitivity. But when the brain detects fear or shame, even subconsciously, it redirects energy toward protection. Blood flow leaves the pelvis, muscles tighten, and arousal dims. This is not failure. It's biology. The body always prioritizes survival before pleasure. Self-connection is the bridge that helps you move from survival to sensuality. It begins with awareness, learning to notice what you feel without judgment. For many women, this means unlearning years of silence. Women are taught to care for others, to meet expectations, to suppress their own needs. Over time, that self-abandonment dulls the senses. You can't feel deeply if you're constantly tuning yourself out. The first act of self-connection, then, is permission. To feel what you feel, even if it's discomfort or sadness. Because beneath every suppressed emotion lies energy waiting to move. And once it moves, pleasure follows. When a woman reconnects with herself emotionally, her physical experience changes. She begins to notice subtle sensations that once went ignored. The texture of breath against skin, the warmth between her thighs, the heartbeat pulsing through her body. These are signs of reawakening. The more she listens, the more her body speaks. And this dialogue between mind, heart, and body is the real art of arousal. Emotional safety also comes from boundaries, knowing what feels good and what doesn't. Knowing when to say yes and when to say not yet. Every no honored builds deeper trust within the body, because the body learns that its signals matter. When you ignore discomfort to please someone else, your body tightens. When you respect your own limits, your body opens. That's why self-trust is the most erotic form of power. It tells your body that it's safe to express, safe to receive, safe to surrender. In long-term relationships, emotional safety often fades not because of lack of love, but because of lack of presence. The pace of life quickens, communication becomes shallow, and intimacy becomes mechanical. But when partners begin to truly see and listen to each other again, without agenda or performance, the body remembers. A woman who feels emotionally seen can relax. She no longer has to perform pleasure. She can inhabit it. Self-connection deepens this even further. A woman who knows her own body doesn't wait for someone else to awaken her. She brings her own energy to the moment. She breathes into her belly. She slows her movements. She notices where her body tightens and where it flows. That awareness itself is arousing because it pulls her into the present moment, where all sensation lives. The body is like an instrument. Tension creates resistance. When the emotional body holds unspoken fears of rejection, of judgment, of inadequacy, those fears create static in the nervous system. The key is not to fight them, but to meet them with compassion. Self-connection means becoming your own ally, whispering to yourself, "It's okay to feel. You're safe here." This kind of inner gentleness invites the body to relax, and as it relaxes, arousal grows not as excitement, but as expansion. This is why mature women often describe their pleasure as fuller, richer, and more embodied than when they were younger. They're no longer chasing external validation. They're feeling from within. They've learned that safety and arousal are not opposites. They're partners. The safer you feel, the more freely energy can flow, and that energy, when it circulates, becomes pleasure. Imagine a woman lying in quiet, breathing deeply into her center, with no pressure to perform or achieve. She's simply exploring the landscape of her own body. The warmth rises slowly, spreading through her pelvis, her abdomen, her chest. Tears come, not from sadness, but from release. This is what happens when safety and connection meet. The body opens not because it's being stimulated, but because it's being honored. The greatest misconception about female pleasure is that it's purely physical. In truth, it's emotional intelligence translated into sensation. Every deep orgasm is an act of emotional surrender. It's the body saying, "I trust this moment enough to let go." And that level of trust can only exist when a woman feels emotionally safe. In her book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, Dr. Christiane Northrup explains that pleasure is the body's natural reward for alignment. When a woman lives in harmony with her emotions, when she speaks her truth, honors her needs, and releases old pain, her nervous system relaxes. That relaxation allows her arousal pathways to activate fully. She doesn't have to force anything. Her body responds effortlessly. So how does a woman create emotional safety for herself? It begins with slowing down, listening to the breath, placing a hand over the heart and another over the lower belly, creating a bridge between feeling and being, whispering reassurance to herself, "I am safe to feel. I am safe to receive." The body listens. It always listens. Each gentle breath, each moment of awareness, is a message to the nervous system that says, "You can let go now." Over time, this practice builds a sense of inner homecoming. The woman becomes both the giver and receiver of her own safety. She stops searching for approval outside of herself. She learns to anchor pleasure within her own body. From this place, every touch, every experience becomes deeper, because she's no longer disconnected from her sensations. She's fully inhabiting them. And when she shares intimacy from this grounded place, the experience transforms. Her partner feels it too. The connection becomes slower, more intentional, more electric. Pleasure turns into communion. Two nervous systems begin to sync, breathing together, feeling together. That synchronization is one of the most powerful forms of healing on earth. Emotional safety is not a luxury. It's the soil from which true pleasure grows. Without it, arousal feels mechanical. With it, every cell comes alive. It's the difference between friction and flow, between being touched and being awakened. As women age, the gift of wisdom is that they begin to value depth over performance. They crave connection that feels real, energy that feels alive, touch that feels sacred. And that craving isn't about lack, it's a remembering. The body knows that it was designed for pleasure that nourishes the soul, not just excites the body. When emotional safety and self-connection meet, the body begins to heal. Old wounds dissolve, shame loses its grip. The woman reclaims her power, not by trying harder, but by softening into trust. And from that softness, waves of pleasure rise naturally. So perhaps the path to deeper physical pleasure is not about learning something new, but unlearning everything that told you to harden, to hide, to perform. Maybe it's about remembering that your body is not a problem to fix. It's a home to return to. And when you finally do return, when you feel the warmth of your own presence filling you from the inside out, you realize something profound. Safety is the sexiest feeling in the world. Because when you are safe within yourself, your pleasure has no limit. It expands beyond the physical, into every breath, every glance, every moment of being fully, unapologetically alive. The truth about pleasure is that it rarely lives where we expect it to. We've been trained to look for it in the glamorous, the fast, the obvious, the kind of stimulation that screams rather than whispers. But the body doesn't work that way. The body speaks softly. Its most profound sensations often begin in places we overlook, the so-called unsexy spaces of awareness, the rhythm of breath, the weight of the hips, the slow unfolding of presence. And yet, these are the very places where the most mind-blowing, whole-body orgasms are born. Unsexy. Body awareness means tuning into what's happening beneath the surface, paying attention to sensations that are subtle, internal, and easily dismissed. It's noticing the shift of air against skin, the pulse beneath the ribcage, the tension that releases when you exhale. It's not about performance or appearance. It's not about mirrors or postures or noise. It's about being fully inside your own skin, listening to every small vibration and allowing it to grow. And when you do, the body rewards you with intensity that no external technique can replicate. For most of our lives, we've been taught to approach arousal from the outside in, to touch the body as though it's an object to be activated. But real pleasure flows in the opposite direction. It begins in awareness and moves outward through sensation. The deeper you go inside, the more the body opens, the more the nervous system relaxes, and the more energy begins to move freely. This is why the unsexy approach, breathing, grounding, feeling, leads to the kind of orgasms that are not just physical peaks, but waves of energy that ripple through the entire body. When you become aware of your body in this quiet way, you stop chasing pleasure and start partnering with it. You learn that arousal isn't a race, it's a rising tide. It builds when you create space for it, when you stop forcing and start feeling. The so-called unsexy acts, closing your eyes, relaxing your jaw, breathing into your belly, releasing your stomach instead of holding it in. These are the invitations your body has been waiting for. They tell your nervous system, you can trust this moment. You can let go. Dr. Berman often says that the female body is designed for pleasure but blocked by stress. Stress tightens the muscles that need to soften, narrows the blood vessels that need to expand, and shuts down the sensations that need space to be felt. Unsexy awareness reverses that process. It tells the body that it's safe. It teaches you to notice the tiny signals, the warmth that starts between your thighs, the way your heart syncs with your breath, the gentle swelling that builds without effort. This is the body's way of saying yes. True embodiment begins when you stop separating arousal from life. The same awareness that lets you feel an orgasm deeply is the awareness that lets you taste food more vividly, walk more gracefully, or notice the air against your skin. The more connected you are to your senses in everyday moments, the more easily you can access them in intimacy. And that's the paradox. The less you try to be sexy, the more your body becomes fully alive. Unsexy awareness is what reconnects you to your primal intelligence. It's remembering that your body already knows what to do. When you release the pressure to perform, you create room for the body's natural rhythm to emerge. Your breath deepens. Your pelvic floor relaxes. The energy that's been trapped in your core begins to flow upward. And when it does, orgasm stops being a mechanical contraction. It becomes a full-body surrender. Many women describe this kind of orgasm as a wave that starts low in the pelvis and rolls through the chest, up the spine, into the head, sometimes even making them cry or laugh uncontrollably. It's not a climax, it's a release. It's energy moving through a body that's finally allowed to feel everything. And the entry point to that experience is always awareness. It's easy to think of awareness as boring. Breathing, slowing down, tuning in, these aren't the things that make magazine covers. But in reality, these are the moves of mastery. The women who experience the deepest orgasms are not chasing stimulation. They're listening. They're tracing the smallest sensations, amplifying them with attention. They're not trying to control their pleasure. They're cultivating the conditions for it to unfold naturally. The body is exquisitely responsive to attention. Wherever awareness goes, energy follows. So when you place awareness on the body, not in judgment, but in curiosity, you awaken it. You start to feel the gentle contractions of the pelvic floor, the subtle shift of temperature, the pulsation that comes alive when breath meets focus. And as that awareness builds, the body begins to generate its own pleasure, independent of external touch. This is what ancient traditions called orgasmic energy, the self-generated current of life force that flows through a fully embodied person. But the modern world distracts us from embodiment. We're disconnected by screens, speed, and self-consciousness. We look at our bodies from the outside rather than living in them. We tighten our stomachs, judge our thighs, silence our instincts. That disconnection numbs pleasure. You can't feel alive in a body you're constantly criticizing. Unsexy body awareness heals that divide. It says, let's stop performing and start feeling. It's the radical act of turning attention inward without judgment. When a woman practices this, something miraculous happens. Her body begins to trust her again. The tension softens. The sensitivity returns. The internal spot that once felt unreachable begins to hum with life. It's not magic. It's biology responding to presence. The body knows when it's being inhabited, and when it is, every nerve, every cell, begins to communicate. Pleasure becomes a language you can finally understand. To experience this, start small. Notice how it feels to let your breath drop lower into your belly. Notice the way your hips rest against the bed or chair. Feel the way your ribs expand with each inhale. The way your skin tingles when you slow down. These tiny observations might seem trivial, but they are the first notes in the symphony of embodiment. Each one builds awareness, and awareness builds arousal. Over time, you'll realize that unsexy awareness isn't unsexy at all. It's the root of confidence, of magnetism, of presence. The people who carry that glow, that quiet power, they aren't trying to be sexy. They're simply home in their bodies, and that homecoming radiates. It draws others in not with effort, but with energy. The most mind-blowing orgasms are not about intensity. They're about surrender. You can't force surrender. You can only invite it. And that invitation happens through attention, through the willingness to slow down enough to feel everything. The unsexy moments, the pauses, the sighs, the deep breaths, are where the body gathers momentum. They are the soil from which ecstasy grows. When you think of unsexy awareness, think of it as the sacred pause before the storm. It's the space where energy collects, where the nervous system recalibrates, where the mind steps aside so the body can lead. Without that pause, pleasure is shallow and fleeting. With it, pleasure becomes infinite. And here's the secret. Your body doesn't need to be perfect, youthful, or performative to experience this. It just needs to be present. You could be 50, 60, 70. It doesn't matter. The body never forgets how to feel. It only needs permission to remember. When you practice awareness, you are reclaiming your body from a lifetime of distraction and criticism. You're saying, I choose to feel again. And the body, loyal and patient, responds. The next time you breathe deeply and notice the warmth spreading from your core, understand that you're not just feeling arousal, you're feeling life itself. That pulse, that heat, that trembling under the skin is your aliveness coming home. In that moment, you realize that the unsexy was never unsexy at all. It was sacred. It was real. It was the doorway to everything you've ever craved. Not just pleasure, but presence, peace, and power. Because when you live fully inside your body, every breath is a kind of orgasm. Every heartbeat a reminder that you are and have always been exquisitely alive. The pelvis is the foundation of a woman's body, the silent base that carries her through every step. Every emotion, every cycle of creation and release. It's where life begins and where life energy gathers. Yet for many women, especially as they age, the pelvis becomes an area of disconnection, shame, or neglect. We speak about heart health, brain health, and bone strength, but rarely about the vitality that lives in the pelvic bowl, the center of gravity for a woman's physical and energetic being. When that center is open, strong, and alive, everything flows. Energy, emotion, creativity, pleasure, confidence. When it's tight, weak, or numb, everything slows. The connection between pelvic health, energy flow, and self-trust is not poetic. It's physiological and profoundly real. Inside the pelvis lies an intricate network of muscles, nerves, and blood vessels, all intertwined with the body's most powerful energy centers. The pelvic floor supports not just the organs, but the nervous system's sense of safety. When these muscles are balanced, neither overly tense nor weak, they create stability. When they're tight from stress or trauma, they send signals of alarm up through the body. That tension doesn't just stay in the hips. It radiates, affecting digestion, posture, mood, even voice. You can hear a woman's confidence in how she breathes, how she stands, how she carries her lower body. When she's connected to her pelvis, she's grounded. When she's disconnected, she's uncertain. The pelvis is also the seat of the second energy center in many ancient traditions, the sacral chakra, the home of emotion, sexuality, creativity, and flow. Energy moves like water through this area. When emotions are repressed or the body is held in chronic tension, that flow stagnates. The result is fatigue, disinterest, or the dull sense of being disconnected from oneself. But when the pelvis is freed, through breath, movement, touch, and awareness, that energy begins to circulate again. It rises upward, nourishing every other part of the system. Women who awaken their pelvic energy often describe a surge of creativity, not just in intimacy but in their art, their work, their communication, even their sense of purpose. Self-trust grows from this flow. A woman who is connected to her pelvis trusts her instincts. She feels when something is right or wrong, not just intellectually but viscerally. Her intuition doesn't speak from the mind. It speaks from the belly, the gut, the hips. That's why the phrase gut feeling exists. It's not metaphor, it's body truth. The nerves that run through the pelvis are part of the same network that controls emotion and intuition. When that area is alive, messages from the body are clear. When it's numb, those messages are muffled. Pelvic health is also emotional health. Many women hold years of unspoken grief, fear, and shame in this part of the body. Every time a woman tightens her abdomen to look smaller, every time she silences her desire, every time she endures discomfort without saying a word, she teaches her body to contract. Those contractions accumulate, and eventually the body forgets how to release. Over time, that stored tension can lead to pain, low libido, urinary issues, or a sense of internal deadness. Healing begins not with force, but with awareness, with saying, "I'm ready to listen to you again." When a woman starts to pay attention to her pelvic space, she's not just improving muscle tone, she's rekindling relationship with herself. Gentle movement, breath work, or even mindful walking can begin this reconnection. Every breath that expands the lower belly signals safety to the nervous system. Every exhale that softens the hips tells the body it can let go. Over time, these small acts create profound change. Blood begins to flow more freely, tissues become more responsive, and a deep sense of vitality returns. Energy flow is inseparable from this physical transformation. In Eastern medicine, stagnation is the root of illness, while flow is the root of vitality. The pelvis is the wellspring of that flow. It's the meeting point between the earth and the sky, the grounding of stability and the rising of inspiration. When you breathe into your pelvis, you are literally circulating energy through your spine, awakening what the ancient yogis called kundalini, the coiled life force that rises through awareness. This isn't mystical exaggeration. It's what happens when the nervous system synchronizes with breath and movement. The energy that once sat dormant begins to move upward, bringing clarity, confidence, and a magnetic sense of presence. Self-trust emerges from this movement because it teaches you to listen inwardly. You start to realize that your body is always communicating with you. The sensations in your pelvis, tightness, openness, warmth, pulsation, are messages. They tell you when you're aligned and when you're not. When you start to honor those sensations instead of ignoring them, you stop outsourcing your truth. You no longer need external validation to tell you what feels right. You can feel it yourself. This is why pelvic health is not just about physical therapy. It's about empowerment. A strong, supple pelvic floor gives a woman a sense of internal grounding. She feels supported from within. She walks differently, speaks differently, even thinks differently. She doesn't crumble under pressure because her foundation is alive. And when that foundation is alive, pleasure becomes effortless. The same muscles that support posture and elimination are the ones that create orgasmic contractions. They are literally the muscles of life and pleasure. The connection between energy flow and self-trust is cyclical. As energy moves freely, the woman feels more confident in her sensations. As she trusts herself more, her energy continues to flow without blockage. The result is a steady state of embodiment, where mind, body, and energy operate as one system. In that state, decisions become easier, emotions move fluidly, and pleasure becomes a natural expression rather than a goal. Many women over 50 experience pelvic issues, dryness, prolapse, loss of tone, but these are not signs of failure. They're invitations to reconnect. The body is simply saying, "Pay attention to me again." And when you do, remarkable healing can happen. Through gentle exercise, pelvic massage, yoga, or even dance, circulation returns. Hormones respond. Nerves wake up. The body remembers how to feel. This is why some women in their 50s and 60s report deeper orgasms than ever before. Not because they're trying harder, but because they're finally listening. Energy flow is also linked to emotional release. Sometimes, when women begin this journey, they find themselves crying, trembling, or laughing without knowing why. That's the body clearing out old memories stored in the tissues. Each release opens more space for pleasure and presence. The body isn't breaking down, it's breaking free. The more energy flows, the more radiant the woman becomes. She starts to glow, not from makeup or effort, but from circulation, from the current of life moving through her. This glow isn't just visible, it's felt. People sense it. It's the magnetic pull of someone who is comfortable in her body, someone who trusts herself. That trust doesn't come from control. It comes from surrendering to what's real. To cultivate that trust, a woman must approach her body as an ally. Instead of demanding, "Why aren't you responding?" she can ask, "What do you need?" Maybe it's rest, maybe it's movement, maybe it's time. When she listens and responds gently, the body opens. That openness is the essence of self-trust. It's knowing that no matter what happens externally, your inner foundation will hold you. Over time, this connection creates a feedback loop of empowerment. A healthy pelvis supports energy flow. Energy flow deepens intuition. Intuition reinforces trust. Trust strengthens the body. It's a continuous cycle of nourishment. This is why so many healing traditions start with the root, the base of the spine, the pelvis, the ground of being. Without it, no structure can stand tall. With it, everything else aligns naturally. In truth, the pelvis is not just a physical space. It's a sacred space. It's where the physical and the spiritual meet. It's where creation happens, whether that creation is a child, a dream, or a new chapter of life. When a woman reclaims this part of herself, she reclaims her creative power. She stops living in fragments and starts living as a whole. And that wholeness, that integration of body, energy, and trust, is what makes her unstoppable. Because when she moves from her center, she moves with purpose. When she speaks from her center, her words carry weight. When she loves from her center, her love is magnetic. The world feels her differently, not because she's louder or younger, but because she's grounded in her truth. So when we speak of pelvic health, we're really speaking of power, quiet, grounded, embodied power, the kind that radiates from the inside out, the kind that doesn't need permission, the kind that trusts itself completely. Every breath that moves through your pelvis is a reminder. You are not separate from your body. You are not disconnected from your energy. You are the current that flows through you. The more you honor that current, the stronger your trust becomes. And when trust and energy unite, the result is a woman who is both soft and strong, intuitive and alive. A woman who knows herself not because someone told her who she is, but because she feels it pulsing in her bones, her breath, her center. Desire does not disappear with age. It changes form. It becomes less about performance and more about presence, less about chasing sensation and more about returning home to the body. For women over 50, this truth can be revolutionary. The culture often whispers that sensuality fades, that attraction belongs to youth, that pleasure has an expiration date. But the body tells a different story. Beneath the surface, in the quiet intelligence of the tissues, desire waits, patient, wise, and ready to be rediscovered. Reclaiming sensual power after 50 is not about trying to feel like you did at 20. It's about awakening a deeper, slower, more grounded form of pleasure that comes from connection rather than adrenaline. It starts with curiosity, not effort. Many women have spent decades taking care of others, surviving expectations, suppressing their own needs for the sake of peace. When you've spent a lifetime giving outwardly, it can feel foreign to turn inward and ask, "What brings me alive?" But that question is the beginning of everything. The first step in rediscovering desire is permission. Permission to feel, to explore, to be sensual again without guilt or self-judgment. A woman's sensuality is not something she earns through youth or beauty. It is her birthright. It lives in her skin, her breath, her attention. When she grants herself permission to feel pleasure, she begins to send a signal to her body. You are safe to open. And the body responds. Hormones may fluctuate, but energy responds to awareness. The body listens to how you treat it. When you move gently, breathe deeply, and touch yourself with respect, it starts to soften and awaken. Many women have forgotten what it feels like to be touched slowly, even by their own hands. The world moves fast, and intimacy, real intimacy, requires slowness. That slowness invites the nervous system to relax, and when relaxation comes, arousal follows naturally. This is not the high-pitched excitement of early lust, but a grounded warmth that builds from the inside. Rediscovering desire after 50 also requires a new kind of self-relationship. Instead of viewing the body as something to fix or fight, it becomes something to befriend. The lines, the softness, the scars, they tell a story of strength. Every inch of skin carries memory. When a woman begins to see her body as a record of her life rather than a reflection of loss, she begins to love it again. That love is magnetic. Confidence born from self-acceptance is far more attractive than youth. It draws people in, not because of appearance, but because of energy. Physical practices can reignite this connection. Gentle movement like yoga, dancing, or even walking barefoot can awaken circulation and bring awareness back into the lower body. The pelvis, hips, and thighs are the roots of sensual energy. When they're stiff or neglected, desire feels distant. But when they're nourished through movement and breath, energy begins to flow again. Some women find that simple pelvic floor exercises or breathwork practices rekindle sensitivity, not by focusing on orgasm, but by focusing on aliveness. Pleasure is a byproduct of presence. Nutrition and rest play their role too. Hormonal shifts can affect libido, but the body is adaptable. Foods rich in healthy fats, hydration, and consistent sleep support not only physical health, but emotional equilibrium. Desire thrives when the body feels cared for. It's hard to feel sensual when you're running on depletion. Reclaiming sensual power means slowing down enough to fill your own cup first. Emotional safety is equally essential. For many women, the loss of desire isn't caused by hormones. It's caused by stress, resentment, or feeling unseen. When emotional intimacy returns, desire often follows. Communication becomes a form of foreplay. Speaking desires aloud, expressing boundaries, and sharing what feels good creates trust. Trust is the soil in which pleasure grows. For women in long-term relationships, this rediscovery can be a renaissance. The body may have changed, but so has wisdom. There's a deeper understanding of what matters: connection, tenderness, authenticity. When both partners approach intimacy with curiosity instead of expectation, they can explore new dimensions of pleasure that weren't possible in earlier years. The body's sensitivity may shift, but its capacity for joy does not diminish, it refines. For single women, this journey can be even more liberating. Without external pressure, there is space to explore self-touch, fantasy, and emotional intimacy with oneself. The act of becoming your own lover, learning what feels nourishing, what feels exciting, what feels true, is an act of empowerment. Self-pleasure becomes not just a release, but a way to reconnect to your essence. The hands become instruments of healing, not just stimulation. Desire after 50 often asks for a slower tempo, a listening rhythm. It's less about performance and more about presence. You can't force it, you can only invite it. And that invitation begins in daily life. In how you eat, how you breathe, how you move, how you think about yourself. Sensuality isn't limited to the bedroom. It's in the warmth of the shower, the texture of clothing against your skin, the way you savor your food, the way you inhabit your space. When you start living sensually, your body remembers that it is designed for pleasure. There's also a spiritual side to this awakening. Many women report that as they age, their sexual energy transforms into creative or spiritual energy. The same current that once drove passion becomes a force for expression, intuition, and wisdom. When you channel that energy consciously, through art, writing, prayer, or movement, you stay connected to your sensual power without needing it to look a certain way. It becomes energy in motion, pleasure that expands beyond the physical into the soulful. This transformation can also challenge long-held beliefs. Many women were taught that sensuality should serve others, that it was dangerous, shameful, or temporary. Reclaiming desire means rewriting that script. It means saying, my pleasure belongs to me. My body is not past its prime. It's entering a new one. Desire becomes an act of self-respect, a declaration of worth. As women reconnect to their sensual selves, they often notice their intuition sharpening. The same awareness that allows you to sense subtle pleasure also allows you to sense truth. You become more discerning about who and what deserves your energy. This clarity brings freedom, the freedom to live from authenticity rather than obligation. Some women fear that reigniting desire will make them vulnerable to disappointment or judgment, but the opposite is true. When you are in tune with your sensual energy, you are less likely to settle. You become more selective, not less passionate. Pleasure ceases to be a currency and becomes an expression of power. There's a line in Clarissa Pinkola Esté's Women Who Run with the Wolves that says, "To love a woman, one must love her as the ocean, vast, fluid, and full of mystery." At 50 and beyond, a woman becomes the ocean. Her depth, her rhythm, her calm strength, her hidden wildness. Her sensuality is no longer a spark. It's a tide. It moves through her quietly, powerfully, inevitably. When women begin to share this energy openly, not as seduction, but as radiance, they change the atmosphere around them. They become mirrors for others to awaken to. A woman who owns her sensual power doesn't need to prove anything. She simply is. People feel it when she enters a room. There's a grounded confidence that says, "I know who I am. I know what I feel. I trust my body." Rediscovering desire naturally after 50 is not a journey of trying to reclaim youth. It's a journey of embodying wisdom. It's about slowing down enough to listen to the whispers of the body, honoring what feels good, and allowing life's energy to move freely again. This is how sensuality becomes ageless. Every woman has the capacity to reignite her inner fire, no matter how long it has lain dormant. It doesn't require a partner, a supplement, or a miracle. It requires attention. The kind of attention that says, "I am still here. I am still alive. I still deserve to feel." Because desire is not something that fades. It's something that waits. It waits for your permission to return. And when it does, when that warmth begins to rise again, when you start to feel a pulse of excitement just from being in your own body, you realize that nothing was ever lost. It was only waiting for you to come back home. That is the power of a woman over 50 who reclaims her sensuality. She doesn't chase pleasure. She becomes it.